I've been a lot into this being fruitful thing lately and trying to help people understand that if you do a 9 to 5, it's more than likely your vocation's your calling. God's called you to what you're doing. And what you're doing in there is just as significant as any leader in a church, what he's doing. And it doesn't encompass church work, you know what? But you're there 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Listen, you're there to be a representation of Christ. That's what you've got to enjoy that and find joy in it and find mission in that and find purpose in that because it matters. I know too many Christians that are they can't wait for retirement to get out of that gig. And I'm like, don't miss.
Oh, you're giving up your best, lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah, you're passing up an opportunity. This is what God has like called you to do, and this is why you exist.
Welcome to the Everyday Disciple podcast, where you'll learn how to live with greater intentionality and an integrated faith that naturally fits into every area of life. In other words, discipleship as a lifestyle. This is the stuff your parents, pastors, and seminary professors probably forgot to tell you. And now, here's your host, Caesar Kalinowski.
Okay, good to be back with you. I hope you had a good long weekend. If you're here in the United States, and depending on when you're listening to this, we just had Thanksgiving. And I'll tell you, as always here for Team K, our family, what a blast. It kind of bled into 3 days of celebration and rest and food and fun with family and close friends and some new friends and some people of peace. I love it. I really do. What a display, what an experience of the gospel in action. It really felt like that. And I've just been hearing back from people in the days since then how much fun they had too and how blessed they all were. So thank you, Dad. Thanks, God. That was amazing. Hey, I hope that you've joined us over on Facebook already. We have a group over there, the Everyday Disciple Podcast group, and that's where I would love to hear from you. If you've got ideas for new episodes or just some comments on the existing ones or whatever, you can find us there pretty easy. Just go to everydaydisciple.com/Facebook, or while you're in Facebook, just search up Everyday Disciple Podcast, all right? Another thing is, being this time of year and all, I know a whole lot of you have your small groups and missional communities kind of back into the rhythms of life. And I haven't mentioned it in a while, but our good friends over at Missio Publishing, who help make the podcast possible, they've got some of the absolute best resources for community life and helping people grow in their understanding of the mission and growing in gospel fluency and out serving as communities together and all kinds of different things. So check it out. Go over to missiopublishing.com and you'll find a whole bunch of different resources, some great stuff that I think you're going to want. Okay, now we're going to get rolling. I got a very cool guest on today. His name's Tim McIntyre, and he and his wife Camille have served for years at Oasis Church on Staten Island in New York City. And Tina and I met them when we were living there in Manhattan, and it was unfortunately kind of right at the end of our time living there, but God knew he had something for us and knit us together pretty immediately. I was like, oh, I love these people and I love this guy. We were instantly pals. And Tina and I had the privilege to coach them as a couple for a few years then. And we've become really close friends. And so after I released that episode a few weeks back, it was called Is Bivocational Ministry the Future for Leaders? Tim had hit me up and said, hey, I'm digging that episode and all. And I asked him if I could talk with him for the podcast, that's what you're going to hear today, about his second job that's outside of his long-term full-time pastoring at Oasis. Because I was with him back in New York just a few months back, and he had just finished up a part-time job in the city, and his heart was exploding. I'm not kidding you. He was so energized for ministry and life and people. It was palpable. I could see it on him. He was so passionate. And I thought that would be a really good follow-up to that other episode, letting you hear Tim's passion for life and ministry as he lives this bivocational or co-vocational lifestyle with great joy. He really does. You're going to love Tim's heart, and you're going to love his New York accent. It's amazing. Take a listen to our conversation, and then I'll be back to give you the big 3 takeaways for today and wrap things up. Here we go. So, Tim, thank you for being on with me, brother. This is just personally fun because you and I don't get enough time to hang and catch up. So
That's right. Yes, good to see you.
I'm loving this, and I've already kind of let people know they're going to really enjoy your accent. You are who you are.
How many generations is it on Staten Island there?
My mom and I were just talking about this past week, and I think it goes back to 1800s. So we've been on the island, in the city for a while, few generations.
Wow. I'm guessing there wasn't the Staten Island Ferry when your grandma first got there.
I think it was totally different.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I really am excited to have this conversation in light of what's been going on with the church and all. And you and I were together, I don't know, several months ago now. It wasn't too long ago, but in your stomping grounds out there in New York, and both in the city and in Staten Island. And you had just come off of doing a short-term sort of Bivo gig working for an Amazon store or something like that. And as you talked about your experience with that, you got so excited about just those relationships and what it was doing in your own heart and all that. But real quick, before we get into that, just give folks a little bit more of an idea of what's going on there on the island as a pastor, and just the real short story of the rhythms of the church there in that community, because your church is right there in the neighborhood on Stanton.
Yeah, well, the last couple of years, like most churches, COVID has sort of kicked us in the shins, to put it politely. And so, like just about every church, we've seen people who left, when we had the pause and went virtual. And then for whatever reason, some people left New York City because the mandates were kind of strict and kind of harsh. Some people just stepped out of church life or regular rhythms of church life and never came back. It was a time it was difficulty financially, having to let people know that the church is still, we still have insurances to pay, we still have bills to pay, still have salaries to pay. And so that was also tough, was the financial strain. And but they come out of COVID, we have a really tight community, as you know. Our people are really just a loving Christian community.
It's a beauty. It really is.
Yeah.
That's a reflection of you and Camille, though. That's your hearts, and it flows. And
Well, we love the people we shepherd, and we know they love us. So we were able to bounce back in a way. I think at least we were glad to get our feet back on the ground again, and start really gathering again. A lot of our people we call them seasoned saints, 50 and over. They were the ones that were the least likely to want to reconvene in our small groups and whatever else we were doing. But slowly we got back to that. We got back to meeting again. So it's almost as if we're replanting the church. And in many ways, I've been really speaking about that. And it has to involve a more missional focus. As much as we love people through prayer and through provision during COVID, the difficulty was getting around people, because even people in our community, everybody shut their doors and hunkered down. New York got hit hard in the beginning of the pandemic.
Sure did.
And people were afraid. And so, that missional aspect of our church fell off considerably, because we have such a reach into our community. We've got such a great reputation here with everything that we do.
For those of you listening, they have their church building, which is great, and it's quite multi-purpose, but it's got a beautiful yard and kind of party pit thing going out there, and twinkle lights. And their house is right there too, because it's in a neighborhood. It's not like you don't have to go find this church. Your challenge will be finding parking, because everybody's home watching the game on Sunday morning.
That's
they're just baked in there. You're just baked in. Your neighbors for a zillion years. Everybody coming and going. They all know you. And from hurricanes and other natural disasters, and now the COVID thing, like, you guys are there, and everybody knows that you're not going anywhere, and you're both friends, but you're also family to everyone, and a true light of gospel there. And it's not perfect. I'm not trying to, everything's so perfect, but it's real deal. It's, in many ways, it is a community church that I think a whole lot of people kind of long for in that sense. And yet, no, in your heart, you're always, there's enough profit in you. There's enough unholy angst for what could be yet, and what else, and how do we even lead differently? And I think that's part of what I was hearing from you is when we were together last, and you were telling me a little bit about that short-term gig you had. And I was like, man, I wonder where this is going to lead. Is this going to lead to Tim saying, hey, it's time to pass that on, because I'm just going to get straight back into working and making disciples of the people we're in neighborhood and work with, or what? But now you've kind of made this shift. I saw a picture of you posted on the internet the other day. I had to go, hey, what's going on? And you were wearing a very familiar looking outfit.
Yeah.
You tell folks
the orange apron.
Yeah, the orange apron. Tell folks now When did you start that? And what are you doing? What's this new sort of
Yeah.
part-time bivocational, co-vocational gig you got?
Yeah. Well, once we started reconvening and gathering the church again, my wife and I just really, we thought about our future, being a full-time pastor for a number of years in the church that we planted. We started as being bivo until the church could afford to put us on full-time as a full-time staff member. But now we've seen the shift. We've seen the shift in the way church is being done, the way we gather, the way we do life together, everything, the whole virtual thing, online. And we just really sat down and had a bunch of conversations about our future. Where's the church going to be in a few years? How's that going to affect us financially? So my wife's been working for a few years. She went to school and studied a little bit to become a CNA, certified nursing assistant. She worked in a nursing home for a bit. That kind of beat her up, though. She's a small gal, and cloying the elderly kind of got her back out of joint. So now she just takes care of a couple of one woman right now in her home. But I needed to do something else. I've always done carpentry and some level of construction. My family is a construction family, so when I needed money on the side, I'd pick up my tools. I'd do a deck for someone. I'd do a kitchen for someone, whatever. And then people knew about me. Hey, can you do this? Yeah, I can. So I did that for a while. Last year, I didn't want to, I had a mild heart attack actually when I was doing the deck. Yeah. And I realized after that, you know what, I'm not an old guy, but the hustle of trying to run a small business with trying to find help and a vehicle, I just said, I can't do this anymore. So I turned in my tools and I decided to pursue retail. And one of the first jobs I applied for was Amazon Books. Amazon had retail bookstores until March of this year. They shut them all down. And it was a seasonal position, Columbus Circle in Manhattan, which yep. We love Manhattan, my wife and I. We'd like to land there.
It's my old neighborhood right there.
Yeah, that's right. Columbus Circle, and I got the job at retail bookstore, and I loved it. I loved it there. A little bit of money helped. But what I love more than anything, after being in full-time ministry in an office with another staff person, and kind of just like you feel almost as if you're, let me use the word cloistered, and then going out from here home. I live in the parsonage, short walk home, not that much interaction. As much as we reached into the community, it wasn't about like doing life with people anymore, and really being involved in people's lives. Well, when I started at Amazon, very quickly, I realized I sort of came alive. There was something in me that kind of sparked because I would go early. There was a Starbucks across the street. I'd have a coffee, get myself prepared for the day, do some reading, go in and just serve people, customer service. I mean, really, equipping us. What does the Bible say? The works of ministry, the work of service. Yeah. It's about serving people, loving people, showing people kindness. And that job just did something to me. I loved that job. Not only that, but my coworkers, just being able to, go in every day and be around other people or whatever it was every other day. And I realized how much importance it played in my life as a full-time paid minister, pastor.
Right.
Someone told me, my sister-in-law came up to me. She's a member of our church. And about maybe, I don't know, a couple of months in, she goes, your speaking on Sunday is different, she said. There's something different, she said, in what you're bringing. And I was like, really? I was like, I wonder what that is. I know, something was there.
Yeah.
But I just love mixing with people in that capacity again. It was something I hadn't done for a while. And it's this whole idea of, we talk about witness, Acts 1:8. Jesus said, you'll receive power to be my witnesses. And for many times, I know as a pastor would tell people, oh, you got to go into work. You got to proclaim the gospel. You got to preach the gospel. You got to witness to people. You got to get them to make a decision, all of that. And I just found just being present, proximity, right? Presence and proximity.
Yeah.
I heard someone once say, be the best example of a human being that someone will see in their day. And so, that's the Christ in us. And that's what I did. And that's how I just, whether it be a customer, whether it be a coworker, and I love that job. And sadly, they closed.
Amazon. When we were together, you had just kind of quit doing it, and you were both stoked and so disappointed.
Yeah,
and I know you weren't getting rich from it, but it was what it was doing in your heart. It was what it was doing for you.
Yeah, it did more for me on that side of it than it did financially. The money helped, but it was just just again, being present in people. Really, I was just talking with a buddy of mine this morning about how, I think some of the mistakes the church has made with the whole missional thing is that it got back to, we have to do, let's do this missional thing as a church, right? Let's do this missional thing. And I think what these jobs have taught me is you don't do it. You just be missional. It's not something we do. It's like, because then churches, what do we do to be missional? Well, we're going to go and hang out at the cigar bar. We went and did that, or what we're going to go do this.
But Tim, one of the big differences for you and Camille is that you have grown in your gospel fluency over the last bunch of years. And we've spent years on that journey together and coaching and all that. But wherever you are good news, and you're looking for the thing behind the thing. And that's not everybody. So just for everybody to say, well, I'm out there just being, but if they don't know how the good news speaks into all of life, then or their own life, chances are they're not good news in anybody or discipling people. Speaking of that, let me ask you one question. I just want to put a pause. I'm loving where your story is taking us here. What do you think the thing behind the thing with your heart here is? You're telling me what you're enjoying and how it's affecting your life and even your pastoring and preaching and stuff like that. What do you think the thing behind the thing for Tim is, for Pastor Tim, for just Tim, the brother, the dad, the husband? What is it, if not from a do to be, like I'm doing that, so now I get this accolade, but what do you think the thing behind the thing, why is it turning your heart on so much?
Well, I think we're called to be around people. Like we need to find ways to be around people. And I think sometimes for myself as a full-time pastor, I had to try to find those times. Let me somehow do something to get around people. Yeah. Whereas the rhythm of life became, okay, I was at Amazon 3 days a week. So I was around people.
Yeah. And I know pastors are all thinking right now, I'm around people all day, but it's all problem solving and program running. And then you isolate to work on your message. And that's not the best way to create that either. Because now, how's that? Like, when are you around the folks in your neighborhood or in your city, right? And experiencing what they're really experiencing. I think one of the crazy things for Tina and I, when we kind of came out of the larger institutionalized megachurch staffing jobs, and then like when we moved out here and the way we were living with Soma and the way we still live in community, was realizing what people really do face and what they really do fear and the things that are really on their hearts, and just getting to be a part of that and say, I face some of those same things. It's not that different because of our role on church staffs or whatever like that. And you start to see a consistency of, humans aren't that different. They really, really aren't. But when we're in a bubble, we're really talk about our programs and who's signed up and who's supposed to be here. And like, they didn't show up. Who can we call? How do we fix that? That's not the same. That's not the same as life on life happening like that.
Yeah. I said to my wife the other day, I said, so now the new gig, I started at Home Depot in September. Amazon graciously paid everyone who lost their job when they shut down the retail stores until July. So the store closed in March, but I got paid a couple of days worth of salary till July. So that was pretty good.
Sweet.
And then I started looking for another bookstore job. And of course, the one to go to is Barnes & Noble. And they have a handful of stores all over Manhattan. I said, let me get a Barnes & Noble job. I figured the experience at Amazon get me in. Haven't been able to get through with Barnes & Noble. Went on one interview, didn't get it. All the others, they say they can go with another candidate. So I just started applying for jobs, landed Home Depot, was surprised at the way I landed it, because a lot of these places now you just take some kind of online assessment and then they hire you. You don't even go for an interview. They tell you hired. And that was the end of that. I was hired. And it's interesting because I guess my skill set in that assessment put me at the pro sales desk. Now, the pro sales desk, if you're familiar at Home Depot, is you're dealing with contractors, professionals. You're helping them place orders. You're helping them get materials, large orders of materials on a given day, so on and so forth. So my construction background, this is how the father knows exactly what he's doing, played so greatly into this that it was the perfect role for me. I mean, they could have stuck me in paint, but no, I'm at the pro sales desk where all the lumber is and all the building materials, and I could, explain things to people who don't know. And so, since I've been there, again, it's just been so incredible to be mostly same thing with Amazon and Home Depot. I'm the elder statesman of the team. It's all younger people. Okay. And so, I call them kids, they're 20s, 30s, And I said to my wife, I said, something happened so much quicker here at Home Depot than it did at Amazon, where I've been able to have such great conversations. Not so much faith, yes, but also life. And I told my wife, I said, when we understand what the Lord has called us to do, where he's placed us to do it, the whole idea of us being a witness and having to, proclaim and all of that stuff. I said, what happens is if you're just around people enough, frequency and so on, the brokenness that's in this world simply opens up opportunities for them to talk.
Yep.
Because every one of us, even us that are journeying in Christ, there's still some brokenness. We need the Lord to heal us. And people that are still journeying toward faith or outside the faith, the brokenness comes out. You don't even have to solicit it. Just having personal conversations with 2 or 3 people, suddenly you'll start to hear and you'll start to see. I just found out one of our coworkers, I didn't even realize it. I thought he was a little ashen as a young man. And I asked another gal the other day, I said, hey, I noticed that, so-and-so, is he okay physically? And she said, well, he had a battle with cancer. He has a port now, he had chemo. And so he's still and I didn't know this. It didn't get to that point in any conversations.
Wow.
But yet he and I, we're ready to go out. He's like, I want to hang with you. Let's go out. Let's go, let's go out. And so that's the thing. Everyone's, the stuff of life that people deal with, sooner or later, it just comes out. And here's the thing. If we are in a position where this is my wife and I, this is our prayer every morning. It's worked out where she can drop me off at Home Depot before she goes to her gig. Our prayer is, Lord, today, let us be fruitful in everything we do. Let us just be fruitful. Let us bear fruit for you. Let us be kind. Let us be generous. Let us be gracious. Give us opportunities just to share your love and who you are. And I've seen that happen, time and time again. And it wouldn't happen if I weren't there. And, my wife's always the one that says, now you know why. When I give her a story, now you know why. Now you know why you're there.
Yeah.
Like this, God placed you in that position. Why not Barnes and Noble? Well, I don't know, but he does.
Yeah.
And so I'm there for this crew of people right here, this little group of people, on our team, 5 or 6 of us. And they know I'm a pastor because it comes out, sooner or later, I have to, let them know that's my other gig. One guy asked me, what, go ahead, what?
The gig has been had. They figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah. One guy, he's a driver. He drives the forklifts. And he said, Tim, why are you working here? I guess I don't look the type. I'm a little old. Why are you working here? So I told him, I said, I have another job. I said, I'm a pastor. He goes, you're a pastor? He goes, oh man. He goes, I better clean up my language around you, man. I said, hey bro, listen, no big deal. He says, no, it's like respect. He goes, I wouldn't use this language around my grandma. I'm not going to use it around a pastor. I said, so be it. But
so be it.
So be it. But it's I enjoy going to work because I know, not only the team, but also customers.
Yeah.
There's just people who come in, they're frazzled, contractors are uptight, they're not getting their stuff. Just to be able to, soft, one of my verses that I lean on in retail, since I've been in retail, is a soft answer turns away wrath.
No kidding.
People have this, idea in retail that they're the only one shopping and, you got to stop everything to help the person, to help them.
And it's all your fault because you're the guy on the other side of the counter.
Exactly. It's all my fault, So I look forward to going for those reasons.
What this sounds like, Tim? This reminds me of, I don't remember where I saw it exactly, but maybe 6 months ago, I saw somebody that I follow online, and he had a picture with, I think it was John Maxwell or something like that. And he said, someone asked him a question like, hey, before you get your feet hit the ground in the morning, John, what do you pray? What are you asking God? He's like, I'm asking God, how can I add value to someone's life today? And every person I come in contact with, how do I add value to their life?
Yeah.
And I love that. And to me, that is so gospel, because if you think about what did Jesus come to do? He came to put a shoulder under the weight of our sin and lead us to freedom with the Father, right? Spiritual freedom, and then relational peace. How do I add value to your life? You coming in, like you were just saying, that's what made me think of it. They're coming in all stressed out, and they're like, and you're the guy, and they just need to vent. And that's what I hear. It's like, you're there being the Son of God. The kingdom of God's with you. It's flowing around.
And now, is this right on Staten Island then? So this is your community?
Yeah, this is on Staten Island. Yeah, it's a little, and there is one closer to me, but this one's on the other side of the island. But
Gotcha.
I see people I know all the time, Staten Island's a small island.
I bet. Now, let me ask you, any downsides? You can be honest. Any downsides to like having this sort of second gig that you're finding with your pastoring and all that?
I think the only downside I have is it's much more, you got to pay more attention now to how you use your time to do the things that still need to be done for the church. So, I still have to prepare to present a study for Sunday morning. There are other things that are still happening that I need to attend to, some administrative things, but just, so it's not getting overwhelmed. Part of the issue is this. So yesterday I worked a 9 to 6 shift at the depot. I came home, my wife had dinner ready. I had dinner, I sat down, I watched about 45 minutes of a documentary I'm watching on New York City, and I fell asleep in the chair I was watching. So I said, gee, I'm falling asleep. I went upstairs and I said, let me just lay down and close my eyes for a little bit, and probably woke up about 2:00 in the morning.
Nice nap, right?
Nice night. So I'm saying to myself, wow, working 9 to 6, because we're on our feet, really. We can't sit much, so last night I was planning to do something other than sleep when I got home. So I'm finding now, like today I was off, so I really had to put myself, get up early, and I'm going to get to the tasks I had planned that I need to do for the life of the church. So I think that's the challenge for me. And I'm only part-time. I was there for 2 weeks, and they offered me a full-time position. And so I considered it for a little while, but it would have been 40 hours, 9 to 6, 5 days a week.
Ooh.
And I had, right after the day they asked me, the next day, I think I had a 9 to 6, and I texted my wife and I said, there's no way I could do this full time. I would not have any time to do anything else. So for me, it has to be a part-time gig. Yeah. So that's the real challenge. The challenge is balancing, making the most of the time you have, the downtime.
And as your brother too, I want to encourage you, be careful that you don't have like zero time for your local community, because, I'm either doing church stuff and prepping and this and that and having those few meetings I need, and they're all jammed into a few days now. And then I'm at the depot. So I got to rest at some point. I got to see my wife on date night. So now I'm not in community with the neighbors and the other folks from the church and all that. So just be careful with that,
Yeah. Well, we, one of our favorite pizzerias, I don't know, I probably took you there at one point when you were around here, Goodfellas. I don't know if I was taking you there. He moved his location. He's got a really nice location now. He's got a full bar area. He's got the big screens for his football and everything. And we went there a few times already. The owner was a great guy. We actually prayed for him. He was nervous about his the business opening up, and we went to see it, to place a catering order. And my wife, ever being the one that goes after it hard, she says, "Can we pray for you?" And we prayed for him, and he was very grateful for that. So my wife and I were saying, hey, we don't have a local place that we, drop in on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Like, let's go to Goodfellas. The new joint is happening, so get some time around people, again, in the community, so we don't neglect, that as well. But that's definitely been the biggest challenge, just balancing now.
Well, Tim, this is also, I know you're not doing it for this, but we're really good friends as people are starting to figure out. I want to tell you, this is pretty humble of you, though, because I know a lot of leaders, a lot of pastors would never do it either, because, we're a smaller church. We could kind of use the income or, the benefits or whatever. But also for the real heart reason that you're doing it for, what it's doing to you and reconnecting your heart to people and everyday, all that stuff, everyday needs in life. That there's a humility to that. Let me ask you this. Is it weird at all when the other pastors in your life are saying, you're doing what? You're working at the depot. What's going on? Is it sure can't pay you enough? You've been pastoring a long time. So any of that creep up in your heart or head ever?
No, I'll tell you why not. Because, the financial stuff, I don't have any problem explaining that. It's been difficult for everybody.
Now we got a recession. What the heck?
Yeah. So that's not really, I don't feel, in any way, like, oh yeah, they can't pay us anymore. No, I'm not worried about that. The other side of it is I would gladly have a conversation about the benefit of it, like what it's done, like what we've been talking about, what it's done in me, as a pastor and as a leader. I think I posted on social media maybe at some point when I was at Amazon, said every pastor should take a year sabbatical and not go away and just relax, but get a job outside the church for a year, even if it's part-time, let that be a sabbatical. Like go out and get among people again. Let's be reminded. And here's another thing that I've learned that really just blew my mind. Here, I've been a lot into this being fruitful thing lately, and trying to help people understand that if you do a 9 to 5, it's more than likely your vocation's your calling. God's called you to what you're doing, and what you're doing in there is just as significant as any leader in a church, what he's doing. And it doesn't encompass church work, but you're there 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Listen, you're there to be a representation of Christ. That's what you've got to enjoy that and find joy in it and find mission in there and find purpose in that, because it matters. I know too many Christians that are they can't wait for retirement to get out of that gig. And I'm like, don't miss.
Oh, you're giving up your best, lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah. You're passing up this is what God has like called you to do. And this is what this is why you exist. Like, this, because you're not called to be church work. I was listening to your earlier podcast, about these young guys that, go to seminary and they want a job in the local church, and they get disappointed. And, it's a short time that you're there and you serve, there's so much more to be doing. And I even started rethinking, since I've been, tent maker now, again, I've been rethinking what we call our people to on the weekends. At the local church, because I know we've been guilty of saying, well, we're doing this Friday night and then Saturday we got this going on, and then don't forget Sunday, so we jam pack the weekends with church activities. And then yet, for me, I'm like, I just work 5 days a week. I want to rest on Saturday. Don't bring any conviction on me that I didn't come to the church picnic or the church outreach on Saturday, because I am guilty of this. I've done this in the past. And I say, man, I want to value people's time on the weekends. You know what? Let's gather. Why are we doing it during the week? Why aren't we sharing a meal? Why do we have to, again, get people to a place for an event when we could just be doing it 5, 6, 7 days a week outside the building?
No kidding. Well, we get to, right? Well, Tim, I wanted to give you this opportunity to share your heart in this, because I know a lot of people are going to hear this that need to and want to, and both pastors, but also what you were just saying, our brothers and sisters that aren't vocationally paid to work at the church. And I've talked about it before. I talked about it a couple episodes back. There's this sort of like 2-tiered vision of the church. It's like those who are the super Christians somehow make their way up the ladder and get paid, and everybody else is just toiling away and trying to figure out how to make their regular jobs count for something until they can finally retire, and then we just wait for heaven so we can pull the eject button and get off this planet. And you're like, no, the kingdom has come. And
Exactly.
we get to live in it, and it's beautiful. And this makes the whole thing, I think, for me, I love it because I love you getting to hear this. It makes it so much more beautiful, again, coming right out of just your own experience. So thank you so much for being willing to further humble yourself. I got one more humbling favor to ask before I let you go. Can you send me a really good, clear shot of you wearing the orange vest?
Absolutely. I'll do that.
I saw that one on Facebook a couple weeks ago, but it was like, all cut off. It was just like your chest. Just give me a few silly shots, whatever, especially if you can send me one from the depot. That would be righteous. Maybe that might break some sort of international Home Depot law, but no. I'm not that big a podcast.
Taking the vest off the premises would break Home Depot law. We can't take our vests off the premises. So our apron. Sorry. So I'll take one tomorrow.
The apron. Job. I say vest because my first full-time job, while I was still going to high school, I worked at a retail establishment, and this will really date me. Not even everybody will know this is. It was called Zayre.
Zayre.
Yeah, it was like a worse version of Walmart, if you can believe that, or Kmart. It was worse than Kmart, Walmart didn't exist just yet, most of the country. Anyway, we all had to wear an orange vest, the same color orange, and with our name on it, and they would put your pins on it for various things.
Right, yeah.
And, I'm 17 or whatever, and outside the rules, I decorated my vest a little bit custom-wise. and they never really appreciated that. But
Yeah.
so I always say invest. No, you send me a picture of that. Maybe I'll share it in the podcast group on Facebook. Okay. So people
can I
get
just finish just one verse that really I really lean into a lot with this kind of thinking is Ephesians 2:10. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them.
Man, so how's that energize your heart as you and Camille leave the house each day?
Yeah, I love that word workmanship. I think it's poem in the Greek, like a poem. It's the life God's composing in his people. He's composing our lives. Just to see his providence in me getting Home Depot, getting pro sales, being in a department of things I'm experienced in. It's God's providence in that because I am his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for the good works that I put my hand to every single day, helping a contractor, encouraging my coworkers, working on a team, whatever it is. And I always love the idea of God prepared beforehand. I like to put it this way. God knew he would need some good news people to do some good works in 2022 at 2501 Forest Avenue in Staten Island, New York at a Home Depot. He prepared beforehand some good news, good works people to be his representatives there. And that's what excites me.
Wow, brother. I love it so much. I love you. Thanks for the time today. I like your day off from the depot. So I know you got to get back to message prep or something probably and Thanksgiving week and all that. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I love you, brother. Thank you, man, so much. Say hey to Camille, all right?
I will. God bless.
Okay, man.
I really love that guy. He is the real deal. And I trust that his journey and just that story, getting to hear him for a little while, though, will be an encouragement to so many of you. God is so good. And by the way, if you want to get a look at what this guy looks like, Tim is actually in the picture for this week's episode. So if you go to the show notes or on your player in iTunes or Spotify or whatever, where there's a little picture next to every episode, that's Tim. You'll see him at work. All right. Now, as always, I want to leave you with the big 3 takeaways from today's topic. If nothing else, you're not going to want to miss these. And as always, you can get a printable PDF of this week's big 3 as a free download by going to everydaydisciple.com/big3. BIG3. All right, here's the big 3 for this week. Number 1, does your current ministry role and lifestyle help you realize and experience what people really do face and fear and the things that are really on their hearts? Both believers and not yet believers? Do you have that? Does that include that for you? Our lives are not really that different because of our role on a church staff. People aren't that different. They really, really aren't. But when we're living in a bubble where we only talk about our programs and who's signed up for what or who was supposed to be here and they didn't show up or how do we fix this or that church programming issue, that's not the same. That's not the same as life on life that God may want us leaders to experience with people. Number 2, I love what Tim said right at the end there. He was quoting Ephesians 2:10 in the ESV. He said, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." Awesome. Could it be that part of your calling, part of what God has prepared for you in advance to do for his glory, may not be contained within vocational ministry, like within traditional church work? You bet. Is your heart open to that being a possibility? Well, we get to pray and ask him right now. Go ahead. And number 3, in what ways may God be preparing you now or has been for a job outside traditional church work? Can you look back over your life for education and experiences and see that God has been preparing you for something other than what you're currently doing or in addition to what you're doing? I feel like every season of my life has been directly preparing me for what God was leading me to next. And I've absolutely loved and grown during every new season, which has helped me learn to trust him. And you can too. Trust our good Father for what he is doing in you now, for what he plans to do with and for you for his glory in the future. Okay, there you have it. There's a lot in that conversation, but there's my big 3 takeaways. Well, that's it for today. I'm really glad that you were with me. Join me again next week. We're going to continue to dig deep into life in the gospel, on mission, discipleship as a lifestyle, and I'll look forward to it. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information on this show and to get loads of free discipleship resources, visit everydaydisciple.com. And remember, you really can live with the spiritual freedom and relational peace that Jesus promised every day.